It is my distinct privilege now to introduce Ryan Green. And Ryan, growing up with a passion for computers, Ryan explored all the dark corners of the internet, emerging from the dark web with a bug for entrepreneurship and a vision for growing role of the internet and technology in business. He set his sights on getting as close to the cutting edge of the future as possible. He masterminds creative strategies to help businesses meet their global objectives utilizing search engine optimization, social strategies, as well as reputation management. He enjoys sharing his journey that led to where he is today, and with the intention to help and inspire and guide other entrepreneurs and students down a positive path. He was telling me he has a 6-year-old daughter that he enjoys raising, and just a phenomenal guy. And we are really privileged to have Ryan share with us today. So Ryan, welcome, and we're glad you're here.
So I always struggle if this is morning or afternoon. We should really invent something that fits this time of day into something. But I hope everyone had a good lunch. I have nothing scripted for you guys today. I'm going to tell you a story of where I came from, where I am today. I hope it reaches a lot of you in a lot of different ways. We were, I guess, date back to when I was about 9 years old. And before you guys have all the technology that you have, I got to grow up with and without technology. I had both. I got to experience what life was without it and grow with it as it grew. I started off with the first computer that my grandfather had. He lived next door to me. The old black and green screen Commodore. It was quite the beast, and we spent hours and hours and hours of learning every little piece of it. We completely took it apart, physically disabled the inner workings of the software, went from one piece to the next, and then he called me over one day. He said, "Hey, I got a new surprise." So I came over, and he had a new Windows PC, one of the first Windows. I was like, "Okay, this is awesome. Where do we start?" So, we slowly started to take all of this apart, okay? Piece by piece. How does it work? How does it work? What this does, what this does. So here I am, young kid, already age probably 12, writing my own games, basic snake games, stupid things like that you guys would just laugh at today. But at that time, it was pretty advanced for a kid my age. So I continued with that, loved it, had this huge passion for these computers. Grew up in Livingston County, got some Livingston County people in here. Was just a normal kid, played basketball, played baseball, played sports, loved everything, was very outgoing, very focused on computers. That was basically a hobby that I enjoyed. And then I got into high school. Okay, these high school years they kind of changed things. I started thinking about girls. Maybe some of you guys in here, maybe some girls, you can relate to all that. Thinking about what the guys are saying, and we had the birth of the internet, common internet in everybody's house. AOL. Go to Walmart, get those free AOL discs, get free AOL for 30 days, dial it up on the phone, get into the AOL chat rooms, talk to everybody, that kind of thing. Have group chats. You couldn't wait to get home from school to get on there, get your homework done, whatever the rules were. You had this group chat, you're talking about this group of people, this sort of thing. Well, what are the people saying about me? We had MSN. We had the webcams came out. We were curious. We were, continuing to advance further and further. So then I got the idea of, I know how all this stuff works. Well, why can't I take this apart? Why can't I figure this out? I want to know what Lauren's saying about me. Okay, well, what's Lauren saying about me? So then I started saying, well, how can I poke in this program to connect to their computer? Like, this is all connecting. It's a big connection. So I started poking around, started learning. There was a virus back then. Yeah, there was viruses back then. It's called ICE9. I'll never forget it. So I took this ICE9 and I said, okay, well, let's see what this does. I infected myself with ICE9 probably 20 times over and over again. Reformat, infect myself, learning what this software did, trying to figure out what this software did, until I was able to replicate it. And then I spread it around and found out what the girls were saying about me in this room, and then I'd say, hey, you want to know what so and so's saying over here? Start telling everybody this and that. It was interesting. We very very innocent. I mean, everybody thinks when they're doing something like that, it's innocent. No, nobody cared. It wasn't against the law. There wasn't even laws out there about that kind of stuff during this time. But one thing led to another. I eventually got into downloading music. You guys ever hear of Napster? That kind of thing. Very, very old school stuff. We got into doing that. And I always wanted to be the best at everything I did. The saying, strive to be your best, right? Well, I questioned everything as well. Where'd that music come from? Who put that music there? I'm always intrigued by everything. So then I started digging. I started following the rabbit hole. There was this thirst of knowledge that I had. There was keyboarding class in school. We had keyboarding. I didn't even want to do keyboarding. It was a waste of time. I would go in there and get in trouble and do that kind of thing, I guess. But what good was it to me back then? I didn't have the courses. Who's in a computer course in high school now? What's it called? There you go, digital literacy. We didn't have that. So if I wanted knowledge on this sort of thing, I had to follow the trail on the internet. And what better place to follow the trail was down the black world that led me to be able to access other people's computers. Well, what I found at the end of that black world was that was the source for movies, that was the source for media, that was the source for everything cool. Like, who wouldn't want access to all of that stuff? I'm a young mind. It was powerful. It was just cool. Like, hey, I got all the music. I didn't have to buy it. I got movies. Who wants a movie? Hey, you guys want me to burn a movie off? It's still in theaters, but I can burn you a CD and you can put it on your computer. You can watch it. We continued to do that. Then I remember begging my parents. I grew up in a little country town, Smithland, Kentucky. There's nothing there. There's a grocery store. There's a high school. There's the Buzzard's Roost. Kind of used to hang out at the Buzzard's Roost down on the river. But there's nothing there. There's no internet there. So I begged, I did this, I did that. We got satellite internet. We still had the dial-up upload speed, but man, my download speeds were blazing. Like, you don't even know. I was, so fast, like 2 megs, like. So that made me be able to download movies. Well, guess what? My parents didn't think nothing about it. My dad thought it was cool as can be. I'm downloading Fast and the Furious at home and watching it while it's still out in the theaters. Why would that be wrong? It wasn't, piracy wasn't even a concern back then. You're still dealing with all of this. So I eventually graduate high school, move on, still playing with computers, every aspect of it. I started I played video games. Everybody plays video games back then, and now and wherever of some sort, whether you play a game on your phone or you play Xbox or whatever. I played a game called Counter-Strike Source. I don't know, some of you might have heard of that before. I was real big into that. So we rented slots back then. There wasn't Xbox Live, there wasn't that. So we rented these slots. Well, you had to connect to these slots to play with your friends. You had to rent them monthly. And I said, well, why in the world am I paying for a slot when I could just get my whole server, set up a server, rent these slots to my friends, and get mine for free? Wasn't worried about making money. I was just worried about playing for free, not spending any money. So we started like that. I set up a game server. I started hosting that. One thing led to another. I followed the source of the movies and the music a little bit further. I went from where the people were getting them to distribute them to the groups that were actually making them and releasing them. I then had servers that I used for the other thing to use what we called dumps. I used those as bargaining chips to get me closer into the inner circle, or what some people might call the dark web. I kind of laugh at the dark web because the dark web, it's still just the web. It's just private areas that people have to know how to get there. It's a chat room. We used MIRC or IRC as the protocol. Lots of colleges were actually, and schools were using that as their online chat programs. There were lots of uses for it. So we actually piggybacked off of some of the colleges' backbones. And it was basically just a big room of like-minded computer people. This is still just a hobby. I'm at this point working. I go to work as a plumber. Okay, I'm actually a licensed plumber. I wanted a good job that I could make a lot of money at quick, and plumbing was a good option. I wanted to travel, and I could travel on somebody else's dollar as a plumber and make good money doing it. So here I am. I'm plumbing now, traveling around, hacking stuff from my computer in a hotel room in the evening times. Running I wanted to be a release group, so I started building a big following for releasing movies. Where's to go? That's what we called it. Come get your wares, get out. Anything you want. Movies, applications. You want that Adobe Photoshop? We got Adobe Photoshop. Come get it. It was all about that. And then it became a game in itself because there were all these other release groups, and it was a battle. Who could get stuff out the quickest? Who could get stuff out the fastest? As we heard earlier, speed was important. Well, most of these groups were relying on home connections. By this time, we were starting to see DSL and cable emerge, which were astonishing speeds. But how do you get on top when you just have people uploading at their speed that they're uploading at? 30 kilobytes per second or whatever it might be. That was no good. So the solution to that was, hey, we can borrow some bandwidth. We can find bandwidth in these other places. So they're not using it. What's it going to hurt? So we would poke around and we would find different networks that we could set files on and use as a dump. And before we knew it, we were number one. We were the place to go to for all of these movies, and that was very, I guess, toxicating. But the only people that knew that kind of stuff were the people on the internet. I still went and played basketball. I did this with my buddies, went drinking, did this, whatever. Nobody knew that I was sitting at home hacking in the evening time. It was a whole separate life. I lived an entirely hidden life, second life, alter ego that I did that stuff in. I wasn't real sure of myself as a person at that point. I got picked on here and there. I was smaller in the crowd, easy to pick on, didn't really fight back all that much. But in the internet world, it was the exact opposite. I could be anybody I wanted to be. I could be on top. It was a very dangerous path to go down. because the more you went down it and the further you went, the further it led you into this persona that you weren't actually capable of in real life. I continued on. We got into doing marketing before I knew what marketing was. We would use those same. I kind of moved out of the movies. Okay, like, well, this is all fun and games, but I want to make some money. Everybody likes to make money, right? Who doesn't want money? It makes the world go round. And so then I said, how can we do this? So guess what? I had all this bandwidth, all these borrowed networks, all these servers that we were using. And what can I do with that? So there's all these, I got to researching, there's all these different affiliates, different things. So I was one of the first people that started sending out all those spam mails that you used to get in your email boxes. I'm not even going to say what some of them were. You can use your imaginations. Prescription pills, watches, different things. And the way it worked was every time one of those people, opened the email and bought something from it, whatever, we got paid a commission from it. This is awesome. Got to scale this. Scale it as big as we can scale it. Just like the movies. We got to be the biggest, the best, make so much money doing this. So that's what we did. We continued to do that. We built, I had a group of people at this point that I kind of led. We all had our own specialties. And it was great, It didn't do nothing. Didn't get out of bed, just whatever. I still plumbed, but I slowly became a part-time plumber. I was like, oh, this is wonderful, why isn't everybody doing this? Maybe they don't have the connections, or maybe they were doing it, but they couldn't do it on such a mass scale. So then I said, well, I want to stay on top of this. More people started figuring that out. They said, oh, well, we can do that too. So then it kind of came diluted. By this time, we've got social media going on. We've got the MySpace, which MySpace was starting to die. Facebook was the new thing. How many people, I know everybody in this room has seen the ads on Facebook where it tries to, maybe your friend gets tagged in some sunglass offer, or the Ray-Ban, yes, something like that. So I created a tool that used borrowed databases from other websites, and it would check all of that against Facebook logins, this and that. Log in, it would then promote an offer. Well, this was when to make money at home, and we started, the initial one was win a free iPad. Anybody ever see a win a free iPad on Facebook? This guy. Sorry, guys. I don't think there was ever really a free iPad to win. But everyone that signed up for it, I got a $1 or something for you to give me your email address. So, that kind of spiraled. We moved that into Instagram. Anybody ever seen on when Instagram was work from home, the profiles, make money at home? That was me. And we always tried to stay on whatever platform or whatever was out there, the cutting edge. We wanted to be the first person to make that money, because once you are a follower, the money's diluted. It's old. It's not fresh. So many people have already seen it. They're not falling for it as much. So the trick was to be out in front of it as quick as you could. Do the best you can to get out in front. Be the best. Don't be a follower. I think we heard that in a previous speech today. So I'm doing all this marketing, not realizing it's marketing. I'm just trying to make some cash. I had a passion for traveling. I love to travel. So my money was spent traveling. I went skiing in Aspen, or did whatever I wanted to do like that. Still plumbing. Yeah, still plumbing. This was all bonus. I actually, even to this day, I enjoy to go plumb. I like to use my hands. I like to not I like to be reminded of where I came from. I didn't always have everything I have, so plumbing's still important to me. So I kept plumbing. I didn't have to plumb, but I had to say I'm getting money from somewhere, and it's kind of hard to explain. I'm the one sending all those spam emails and all that stuff. So we'll just stay on the payroll. We'll keep plumbing. So it changed, and then the iPhone came out. Probably half the room has an iPhone, right? So the iPhone really changed. It changed the fields in so many ways. And I had moved out of the borrowing servers kind of at this point and was trying to do things a little bit different because the affiliate marketing, that's always where it was at. It was great. There's so much money in affiliate marketing. It's an untapped resource kind of at this point. Google's still kind of new. It's still, people are still using Yahoo and all of the other things. So I moved into that. Well, most everybody in here has heard about jailbreaking an iPhone. Yeah. Well, when the first jailbreak came out, it was so cool. Everybody wanted it. Everybody wants those free apps. Everybody wants to do whatever you could do with it. And it was kind of complicated. It was still command line. It was still not user-friendly. Someone like myself, all day long, easy. And I had so many people saying, hey, will you jailbreak my phone for me? Will you jailbreak my phone for me? I can't figure this out. I can't figure this out. So I made a simple GUI program that automated the process of jailbreaking an iPhone. You just plug your phone in, you hit jailbreak, hit OK a couple times, and you got a jailbroke iPhone. I mean, that's awesome. Who wouldn't want that, right? Well, what good is that software? Okay, how am I going to use this? Am I going to spam it out like I normally do and try to hit everything in between? Like hope that somebody wants it, whatever? Nah. I learned how to build a website. So I built a website, okay? And I put this put this software for sale on the website, $29, okay? Most people pay $29 to have the whole app store for free, jailbreak their phones, this and that. And I said, well, now how am I going to get the people to this website? So I learned search engine optimization. Back then, it was the easiest thing in the world. Anybody could do it. Any of y'all in here could do it. You just spam a bunch of stuff, spam some links. It's very, very easy. And I started doing SEO for my website that had the jailbreak on it. So within probably a month's time, month to 2 months, I learned how to do SEO. I started SEO, and we had 1 million plus people coming to the website a month looking to jailbreak their iPhone. And that was when I said, you know what? There is no reason I should be doing the stuff that I'm doing when I can take this to a completely legal, upscale business platform. So I slowly started transitioning out of all of the kind of stuff that I used to do. No more borrowed servers, no more of that. I stayed in the community because it just makes sense. You have to keep your presence when you go from the top. You don't just leave. I couldn't leave. It was almost an addiction. It was an addiction. It was a type of problem. I couldn't stop doing it. It was very, very bad. If I got upset in real life, I could just live in this one. I didn't have to deal with the problems in real life. It was an escape if things are rough. So I couldn't leave it. I stayed in there, if not even for that reason, but it just made sense because you want to know how to protect yourself. You want to know what's going on. So antivirus companies would love to have been in the position that I was in, to be able to see the tools that are being developed, to have the people developing them ask me for advice on how they should get around this programming or they're running into this problem. So to still not be active and still be at the top of the food chain and one of the most respected people of the dark web, it was very hard to leave, and I I stuck around. Probably one of the worst mistakes I'd ever made. So I stayed in there, and I continued on the marketing path. iPhones, started creating websites, started creating that stuff. I had some business partners that we did stuff with in the dark web, and all this happened kind of at the same time. Was as I was moving on to this stuff, they were moving on into a darker world. They weren't happy with the affiliate commissions anymore because everybody was doing it. So the commissions cut into a quarter of what they were. The market got saturated. So they moved into more of the bad, like identity fraud, credit card stuff, which I personally wouldn't have anything to do with because I had morals. So, I was making I felt like what I was doing wasn't a crime. I felt it was just, I'm borrowing this. I'm not hurting anybody. Matter of fact, every server and every computer that we got access to, I ended up securing it and fixing their stuff to keep other people out because I didn't want to lose it to another hacker. So if anything, I felt like I was doing a service to everybody. So we transitioned out of that, and I continued what I was doing and was doing very well. I kind of got into making a considerable amount of money, and I said, "Well, I'm gonna quit plumbing. I can't plumb anymore. I'm gonna have to focus all my time into this. I'm gonna scale this up." So I'm doing web design. I'm doing all this kind of stuff. So I'm like, "Hey, I'm quit plumbing, and I rented an office over on Jefferson Street, and I'm going to start a web design company." Sounds great. I got all these skills. I can do so much. So I quit plumbing, and I move over into my office, and I tidy everything up. It looks real good, this and that. Now I said, okay, well, the phone's not ringing, but where's a phone book? I'm going to go through this phone book, and I'm going to start calling these companies, and I'm going to get so much web design. I called, and I called, and I called, and guess what? I got nowhere. Nothing. So I failed. Okay? Well, darn. What am I going to do? So I go back to plumbing. I'm still doing my side hustle with my affiliate marketing and my own SEO and my own websites on the up and up. And I spend most of my days while I'm plumbing thinking, okay, well, I didn't really fail. This is just a lesson to teach me what I need to do different in the future. I didn't give up. I was still determined that I was going to have this web design company. I was going to do this. I want to do this for a living. I love this. I want to help other people. I want to do all of it. So I go back in, think, and put a plan together. And I said, okay, let's execute this plan. So I connected with other marketing companies because I could offer a service that very few people were able to offer at the level that I was able to offer it at, which is the search engine optimization. My design skills kind of suck. I'm not a real good designer. I'm not a good graphic designer, but my analytical side of things are through the roof. So the SEO was just something that I was great at. The first meeting I have, and I know a lot of people in here may and may not know him, but Jonas Niehoff was socially present. He is one of the best people I know. I met with him, and I told him, hey, this is what I can do, I'm looking to partner with some other marketing companies. And he's like, man, I think we can help each other. And so after all the thought process and putting all that together, I started replicating that with other marketing companies, getting them to outsource to me. Things are going great. Like, business is good. My ideas are coming together. And then one crazy morning, the FBI kicked my door down. And I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, we have a search warrant for all of your computers, et cetera, et cetera. I hadn't been a part of that life at this point in almost 6 years, 5 years. I hadn't done anything. Okay. Didn't even think that I was doing anything wrong when I was in that life at the time. They confiscated all my computers. I was scared to death. I can't even tell you the feeling of what it was like. You know, my first thought is my daughter at this point. I guess she would have probably been a year, maybe 2 years old at this point. 2 years old. You know, what's going on, what's going to happen. It was a terrible feeling. And then the second one is I've worked so hard to build this business that I have. It's going to be gone. People are going to hear about this. Who's going to want to do business with somebody that's in trouble with the FBI or whatever. So I calmed down. They have me in a room. You know, I'm talking to them, this and that. And I made some deals with them. They wanted some of the skills that I possessed to be utilized for the government. So, yeah, here I am. Spend a couple years working for the FBI. It's hard. I can't tell anybody about it. It's a complete secret. I'm depressed. I'm doing things that I was completely against, morally, ethically. But for my daughter's sake, I have to comply because it is the only option that I have. So I lived a very rough 2.5 years trying to act like nothing was wrong. I continued on with the web business. It was all a secret. And it finally came to an end. I had some great attorneys. They really helped me. They became family to me over the course of time. And we were able to get out from having to work with them. And I took a deal, and I got sentenced. And the deal was that the sentencing was supposed to be quiet. It was, you know, there was with me helping them, it was never supposed to go to media. So I was like, that way I can continue on with my business because I never had to do any jail time or any of that kind of stuff. And right before my sentencing, they switched judges. The judge broke his arm in a bicycling accident. What kind of luck is that? So I got a new judge. Somebody from the judge's staff, the new judge's staff, leaked it to the media. So I didn't know it was leaked to the media until I'm sitting in the airport in Pittsburgh getting ready to go home, and I start getting text messages. I was devastated. My business is ruined. Everything's ruined. All because of some stupid mistake I made when I was young. Because I thought it was easy to make money. That's tough. That's a really tough feeling. I got home. I didn't want to talk to anybody. You know, like, we're in a small town. You know, this stuff's gonna spread so quick, like wildfire. It's crazy, and you know, they run the stories here at home talking about local plumber hacker. You know, like, it's kind of comical after I look back at it, but I was still devastated. They twisted it and made it sound like stuff that it wasn't, which was expected, kind of, whatever. And then I got a text from a client, and it was very simple, short text. I didn't even want to open it. I didn't want to open it. I was like, it was one of my bigger clients. And I was like, I don't want to open this. I don't want to open it. I opened it. Said, I knew I had the right man for the job. And I instantly felt a little bit better, you know. And it was still devastating. I think I spent about 3 weeks in bed. I don't know. It was rough. But I had to stay positive. I had to say the same thing as when my business failed the first time. Okay? What went wrong? How can I change it? What's bad? How can I do better? So I wasn't in prison. That's a plus, right? Most people in my position would have been in prison. Like, it carried a very hefty prison term, but I didn't have to go. I had a client that was positively reinforcing me. I had my daughter in the next room. And what can I do from here? You know, how can this be a positive thing? I hadn't quite figured out how it could be a positive thing yet. A couple months later, maybe not even a couple months, I got a phone call from Murray State, a teacher there, and they wanted to know if I could come speak about digital marketing to their class, their master's class that meets over here at the other thing. And so I prepared a digital marketing speech. Was kind of surprised with, you know, the whole FBI headlines and all this that they would want me to come do that. I felt better about it. And then I get in there and I'm like sitting there preparing, kind of talking to the professor and whatnot. He says, "Do you think you can talk about the FBI thing?" I started having anxiety, like instantly. Like I was like, well, I didn't even think he knew about it at this point, or what, for whatever reason, you know, like crap. And I was like, man, you know, he's like, no, it's okay. He's like, I just think it's that's part of your portfolio now. You know, that needs, you know, that justifies you. That gives you even more credibility. And I was like, well, I guess in a way. Not very many people can say that the FBI kicked their door down and they worked for the FBI for however many years and never went to prison. So that's got to mean something. And so I talked about it. And I found out that everybody in there was very intrigued, had lots of questions, and saw it kind of as a positive thing. And, you know, business was still good. And it was a good thing. And what I took away from that was I can share my story and maybe help some young minds, some young individuals, show them that, yeah, you may have this awesome IT mind. You might venture down these paths. They might be very tempting. You could start making money right now while you're at whatever age. You could skip school. You could do this forever, whatever. But that's not smart, you know. You never get away from the things that you do. You're always going to be accountable, whether it's now, later, future, whenever. It's going to catch up to you. I wish that I had the resources and the conferences like this one and the things that you guys have out in front of you today. There's no telling where I would be if I would have had that kind of guidance and the opportunities. But the IT field just was not big enough or supportive enough during this time. It was still the early years. So I realized from that I wanted to really start helping and trying to make a difference, guide people, tell them the paths where I went aren't the best, help them make some of the better paths, mentor them on anything they might have IT-wise, you know, because I've done everything from, like I told you, trying to see what a girl was saying about me back in high school on Instant Messenger. Of course, now you guys got the group chats and all that. Does anybody even still use messengers of any kind? Skype for stuff every once in a while? So that's, you know, it's really important. I continued on and I did that first speech, and then I got another opportunity to give another speech at Murray State, the Pod Security Matters Conference. Some of the people in here, I think, got to hear that one. It was my first bigger one, really just telling about the story. I kind of got pretty emotional during that one. It was kind of rough. But as I did that, I learned even more how important it is to show failures in life and show how they can be overcome and that they're not the end of the world, and different places that you can look to make the best of a situation. If I don't fail at something I'm doing, I don't feel like I'm doing it. Because you only learn from your failures. You don't learn from your success. You learn from the hardships. You learn how to make those hardships better. If a piece of code doesn't compile the first 1,500 times, you're eventually going to learn what you did wrong, and you're going to say, it was that all along? So you have to learn from your mistakes. I now have so many different avenues that the FBI thing has opened up. Got into digital crime scene reconstruction. We've done some murder cases. We do the forensic phone hacking. We do just so many things. I turned that negative into as big of a positive as what I could. They say, all publicity is good publicity. And I guess in this case, it ended up being. I'm sure there's some naysayers and some people that are like, I wouldn't touch them with a 10-foot pole. But for the majority of everything, it's been a very, very positive thing. And I'm glad to be able to tell the story and hopefully help some people overcome some mistakes that they may make in life down those paths. So I hope some people have some questions for me.
We have a few minutes for questions before we do the door prize. And I'm sure you're loaded with questions. We can try to take a few. Just raise your hand and I'll bring the microphone. Any questions? Are you afraid to ask? All right, John.
Your tale, while cautionary, it's still an inspiration to every man, like me, for example. I'm a non-traditional student. But that being said, kind of off subject, but in lieu of what you used to do, how do you feel about the media's portrayal of people who have done what you do versus what you've seen being, well, a guy from Livingston?
So the media, it's hard to say. The media highlights the parts that I feel like are not the most important parts, although they are still a dangerous threat. But the biggest dangers and threats are not necessarily talked about, which I did talk more about at Murray at the Pod Security, was, you hear about Russia and China and their hackers and all of this. That's a danger. But the big danger are the small time people like me sitting in a basement somewhere and the other people that I am competing with to be the best that are creating these threats that Russia and China and them are then buying and using on a mass scale. So that's where I think the media fails to really portray what the threats and things are.
Thank you. It's a good question. Other questions? All right. I'm going to pass the mic.
What advice would you have for someone looking to start their own business and make a website of their own?
Well, that's research. Research is number one. Without the research and data to back up the business that you're going to start, you don't want to start a business that doesn't have the opportunity to grow or be successful. So if you're wanting to create a petal dye, flower dye business or something, is there enough people looking to do business with you to make it worth setting up that business. So research all the way around, in my opinion, is the best. Supply and demand.
Thank you. One more question? Some Livingston student, right?
So you mentioned that early on it was more like a Wild West in terms of laws with the internet. Has laws passed in the current day reduced the small town hacker and encouraged the international, more like Russia and China you mentioned? Has it encouraged the international hackers, or has small town hackers still stayed the dominant force of hacking in the United States?
So I've been out of it now for so long that I can't really say specifically on what that is. I can say the laws and stuff of the criminal laws of hacking and computers stuff in general are very, very broad. When I was going through my proceedings with the legal system, I was clumped into something that they just clumped everybody into because there's not specific laws. So like assault, instead of, it's kind of the equivalent of saying if you assaulted somebody, they're just going to charge you with murder because they don't have assault charges on the legal aspect of it. But as far as where the biggest, what's enabled and what's not, I couldn't say, because they're all going to operate outside the law regardless. So I don't think that they take much notice on any of that. They think they can't get caught. They think they're the best and never going to get caught.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.